Welcome to Dad Bods, Crab Cakes, and Sports, where husky middle-aged men share insight on the latest Baltimore sports news. From the bank to the yard and beyond, we're breaking down the Ravens, Orioles, Terps, and more. Baltimore's best sports podcast starts right now.
Okay, happy Saturday evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Dad Bods, Crab Cakes, and Sports. Mike Frisky sitting in here with you. John Lance Craner and fake John Lance Craner also in studio. If you're watching and we're on our podcast for fantasy football last night, you'll know that John is logged in multiple places and doesn't know how to log out of one of those places. John, on a scale of 1 to 10, how does your Dad Bod feel tonight, buddy?
I'm sore, man. I'm sore. I took the weekend off from going to the gym, and I had some inflammation in my elbow, and my knee hurts, and so I had a partially torn UCL in college, and didn't have to have Tommy John or anything, but I think that it has something to do with like right in your like in your elbow and sort of on the outside of your elbow. So I'm a little sore today. How about you, my friend? Did feed you well today?
I got fed well by not Jimmy John's, Jersey Mike's. They fed me one meal today, so that was delicious. And then I don't know how they do it down in Florida, but shrimp salad with the Old Bay. I had some shrimp salad from the Savory Deli. Shout them out up here in Fallston, Maryland. So I ate well today. My dad bod, it's just the little things today. It was nothing big. Julie looked at me this morning and she goes, "You got like crust on your eyebrows." I'm like, you know what? I'm old. These things happen. It's just a little bit of dead skin. Yeah, I'm getting old. And I'm looking at my ankle and I've got a poison ivy / insect bite. I don't know what it is, but it's there. I'm like, this is just the everyday occurrence. My guts are in a knot. I don't know what's going on with that. But dad bods everywhere. But the biggest dilemma I had today, John, was which hat do I wear tonight? Ravens or Orioles? Because both teams are playing, which is the best time of year for me. I'm not sure how you feel about it. And both teams did a great job. So how are you feeling about that tonight, buddy?
Oh, I'm feeling good, man. We're at an Airbnb for the weekend. So, of course, what do? You go to the Publix liquor store. So I got a 12-pack of these. Shout out to Hard Mountain Dew. So there's a Baja Blast, there's Code Red, there's regular Mountain Dew, and there's a LimeWire, that like orange flavored Mountain Dew, all hard. And I only have I think 1 or 2 cans left. And then my wife went to the store and got this Sprite with tea. Have you ever tried this?
No, these are actually name brand products that have alcohol.
This is not. This is just Sprite with tea. This is just
okay.
Coke. But this is Mountain Dew. That's hard. It has liquor in it.
Interesting.
It's 5% alcohol by volume. Contains no sugar. It's only 110 calories. So it helps me get to my 3,000 calorie goal.
Nice.
I don't know if it's the best calories, but
well, I'm gonna pick the Ravens hat for now. I'm just gonna throw that on. As far as Mountain Dew, Code Red Mountain Dew, I think got me through college. Code Red Mountain Dew and Burger King Whopper Juniors, unfortunately, and that was probably the beginning of this dad bod. My metabolism was a little bit higher back then, so it's not quite what it is now. But now, obviously, the conglomeration of that is what you see currently in front of you. I'd be remiss, though, if I didn't tell everybody that we are brought to you now by the Spark Podcast Network. So thank you for our partners at Spark Podcast, and that's why you'll hear a few ads within our show. But, man, they have been great so far, and we're excited to be a part of the Spark Podcast Network. John, dad bod question of the day. You ready?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, I got 1.5 questions today. First one is a fun question for you. All right?
Okay.
What is more dangerous, Florida man or a Maryland guy who is 3 natty bows deep? What is more dangerous?
Oh. Well, a Florida man. A lot of Florida guys, who said this? Oh, I don't know.
Literal death in a can.
I think that's Jason.
That has to be Jason. Brought to you by Dad Bods.
So
I
I
love
think
it.
it's the Florida man
Okay.
because the Florida man has to be very leery of things in Florida because you see these guys holding a beer and you saw the video of the guy like holding a beer and holding a trash can and scooping up a gator in the trash can and then like rolling it down the hill out
Yeah.
into the lake, and things like that. So the Florida man is 5 or 6 hard Mountain Dews or Seagrams deep, and he's going and fishing alligators out of his pool. Whereas the Maryland guy, he he's kind of there, and he's finding a reason to complain about something with the Orioles or the Ravens, and you know, I think the
All
Florida man's a
right.
little more dangerous.
Well, he
What
might be
about
elbow
you?
deep in crabs. That would be great. But the reality of the matter is he is probably somewhere downtown, which I mean, I think Natty Bose could help you get into survival mode there, take the edge off so that you don't feel a little bit antsy. And I think as far as Florida Man versus Natty Bo, Florida Man has got more going on. I feel like you guys got a lot going on down there, and for us, nice and chill with the Natty Bows, but the decision making can change. The nice thing about the Natty Bows is a percent alcohol by volume isn't going to kill you. So I think you might get the win on the Florida Man at this moment. Um, but for the real dad bod question of the day, and we like to make it dad bod related, what is one food that you could never, ever, 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 ever give up in a million years if you had to give it up? And obviously, sans or barring that you had to give it up for a health issue, because obviously these things happen. But what is one food that would be that food for you, John?
It'd have to be chicken. I eat chicken. I'll eat 2 or 3 chicken breasts a night. That's like the only meat I eat because it doesn't have a lot of fat in it. I love
Chicken.
chicken. Chicken like today I went to Publix and I bought chicken breasts that were bourbon and Cajun because the Cajun is spicy, the bourbon is not. And so like for my wife and my kids, I gave them the ones that weren't spicy, and then I took the other ones. But I downed 2 of those chicken breasts. But if you want something like that's not healthy, it'd be like Swedish fish. I love Swedish
Oh
fish.
yeah,
Those red,
yes.
I could eat that. Okay, so they come in like different sizes, right? You can get like the movie theater box size. You can get
Yes.
like the bag, but then you can get like the 3 pound Swedish fish bag. And when I worked at an amusement park in the call center, I had a whole bag in my drawer, and I would eat probably 2 or 3 of those big bags every week of like 3 pounds of Swedish fish. Those things are I don't think I could live without those.
Well, and Swedish Fish is like a childhood memory for me. Like they used to have the old drugstore candy store down. Grandma would send you down to the corner store with like a dollar bill, and it could buy like a million different things. And Swedish Fish was one of them. Oh, look, Colin's here. Today's episode also brought to you by the letter J. Thank you, John, for being here in human format and in letter format. We appreciate both. Um, Jason says beef. I'm going to go with my personal favorite, and it can be added to almost anything, and that's bacon. Like, if I had to give up bacon, I would have a major issue. I know my arteries might work a little bit more fluidly, but I like BLTs. I like bacon, egg, and cheese sandwiches. I put bacon in salad to make it worse. I would even eat bacon in dessert. I don't even know how you would do that. Maybe some like chocolate covered bacon with graham cracker or glaze of some type. I would do bacon pretty much in any format that can be created. And my wife has made almost the best bacon thing ever, which is like the brown sugar maple bacon that you bake on a pan. Oh my god, it will kill you, but it is amazing.
Have you had those maple bacon glazed donuts?
Oh
There
yes.
was this place by where I used to live in Ohio that had these mini donuts, and they had a maple bacon glazed with um like bacon bits on the top. Oh, but do you remember when Denny's had like their bacon thing, and they had bacon and everything? They had like bacon milkshakes and bacon, But I did make a bacon wrapped um, jalapeno poppers today to go with the chicken. So that was pretty good. The bacon though, I can see that.
Yeah,
Mike
and I
Mike
mean,
says Mike says that should be our national food.
Yes. Mike DeMarco, thank you. Yes, I agree. Bacon should be our national food. And Jason used to work at a restaurant and bar, and they used to serve a basket of bacon. And I told Jason I really came to visit him while he was bartending, Jason, but in reality, it might have been a little bit more for the basket of bacon. But don't it's not because of you. It's just because I love bacon that much. All right, let's move on, John. Let's get out of the food category. Let's talk sports because that's what all the listeners are here for. Tonight, the Baltimore Ravens take on the Philadelphia Eagles in their home preseason opener. And things went well for the Baltimore Ravens, at least when I tuned out and started here on the podcast. It was 24-0 when I was looking. John, can you give us a Ravens update?
Yes, it is 24-7 with 33 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Let's see, what is his name? Peyton. I don't know what his first name is, but Peyton for the Eagles threw a touchdown pass, just a short one to Azukanama. Ezukanma. Azukanma, maybe? I don't know.
Is that Spanish for you won't see me on the field in the regular season? Is that what that means?
I think it's Nigerian or something for that.
Okay.
I think it's I'm going to be on 32 practice squads at some point in my life, and I'll end up in the UFL, CFL, or other three-letter organization.
Yes. Well, you know what? Preseason football, it's sometimes it's about as exciting as watching paint dry. But I did tune in tonight, and I enjoyed watching the game. You don't have to have that same hyper focus that you do during a regular season game. But I kind of wanted to see what this Jesse Minter-led Baltimore Ravens football team looked like, and kind of relative to what the John Harbaugh era looked like. And it's been a while since we've seen the Ravens team led by anyone other than John. So, John, give me your first couple. Cole Payton, says Jason. Look, that he's helping us out even from the sideline, John. Cole Payton with the touchdown. John, what was your initial takeaway from tonight's game? Any big ideas that you came away with from watching? I know you're using your phone and beaming it up to your television there in your hotel room.
So the biggest thing that I saw was that the defense played with pride and passion. The defense was getting pressure with 4 down linemen. They were playing hard. They were playing with what I would call pizzazz. They were putting in an effort that I don't think we've seen in a while. And again, these are the second, third, fourth, fifth string guys who are fighting for a job and doing things. But the Young was amazing. He was all over the place. You looked at that, and I think that the rookies really stepped up. And Waffle House made some wonderful plays out there. Finding open spots, and the rookies I think really made an impact. And just real quick, to go over the stats with you, this was what you would call a curb stomp, according to Jason. Ravens, 440 total yards, 41-17 time of possession, 41 minutes and 17 seconds time of possession. The Philadelphia Eagles had 159 yards total and an 18-minute and 43-second possession.
Yeah, so you have a defensive-minded head coach who seems to understand how to play defense, and that seems to have translated into some wonderful defense on the field in preseason football. Jeremy Fritsch, Jason Weisbecker loved the basket of bacon. Jeremy used to go down with me to CC's in Essex and partake in the basket of bacon. Hey, real quick, my takeaways. I really appreciated seeing Fagnano. He looked ridiculously good tonight, John. And I don't want to jump the gun with this guy because my curiosity is, was it these receivers that made him look so good tonight? Was it the offensive line that made him look so good tonight? Or did we find maybe a gem that could be maybe someone we could keep as our third quarterback, but maybe has the potential to eventually replace Tyler Huntley? John, you have his stat line in front of you because I have a couple things to say about him.
Yeah, he's 22 for 28, 224, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. We only had 7 incompletions in 37 attempts. So our quarterbacks were on target.
He was moving, he was rolling. They were using play action time and time again, running the football, play action, and I really think that worked really well. And he had time to throw. a slide left and right here or there. It wasn't always just perfect in the pocket, but like he had time to throw the football. If that's Lamar Jackson back there, man, God, how good are we going to be? Now, keep in mind, this was not our offensive line. This was not their defensive line. And so all these things kind of go a little bit out the window when it comes to reality because these are not the same players that you'll see on the field come the regular season. But you have to be encouraged because I felt like the Ravens looked disciplined. Their defense got off the field on third down. Their offense moved the ball consistently, and those were things that we had trouble doing last year, game in and game out, even with our starters. So it seems to me, and this is what they've been saying all preseason long with these players, is there's an attention to detail going on in that locker room on both sides of the football. And Minter's bringing it defensively, and Declan Doyle's bringing it offensively. And he was up in the booth tonight, and he did a really nice job as a play caller for the first time.
Absolutely. We only had 3 penalties. I think one was a false start, and then 3 were, or the other 2 were defensive penalties. It was a defensive hold, and I don't remember what the other one was. But, you see that a lot in the preseason games when you're rotating in offensive linemen, you're rotating in and out quarterbacks, you're bringing new people in, your cadence is different things, that to only have 1 false start penalty in the entire game, it speaks volumes. Because that was the thing, with Harbaugh, was that, not to keep beating a dead horse, but it was always penalty things. It was always false starts. It was always something with the offensive line that would go to kill a drive. Even your Ronnie Stanley's, it was always an issue. Where here, I think, like you said, Mike, they've been preaching discipline, discipline, discipline. And then also the other thing I think which helps with a lot of things is you're getting input. This was reported that they were getting input from the players as they're instilling this offense, as they're putting these things in. So they're playing to both not just the players' strengths, but also, what they like, how they want to play, what they want to do. And you saw this against the zone defenses. He got the ball out quickly. He didn't sit and wait. He just got the ball out. And that, I think, was a huge reason that we had such a high completion percentage and we moved the ball so well down the field.
Yeah, let's stick with the positives for a couple minutes. A couple things that I noticed from the game. The first one was we were really concerned, and if you listen to some of the podcasts and some of the reporters at training camp, that our tight ends were not doing particularly well. I thought Hibner showed up in a big way tonight. He didn't do anything particularly flashy. He did made a couple decent runs after the catch, but he caught everything that was thrown his way. And it was reported that tight ends were dropping the ball left and right. So that was the number one takeaway where I thought, hey, you know what? If he can be a serviceable number 2 tight end and Mark Andrews can get back to being some semblance of Mark Andrews, it reduces the amount of worry for me 100%. So if he can do what he did tonight, man, that's all he needs to do. Because it sounds like Declan Doyle can scheme him open a little bit. Any thoughts on the tight ends?
I thought it was much better than what we'd expected. And I think, Declan Doyle and is not an idiot. I mean, he's 30 years old and he's in this spot for a reason. I think he sees what we see, and I think he sees what everybody sees, and he knows what needs to be fixed and what has to be done. Jason says that's my sleeper. But I was very impressed. I think just as they grow as a cohesive unit, I think things will just get better. And this, again, 3/4 of these guys wouldn't even be on the roster in 3 weeks.
Hibner, to me, that stuck out because of how negative I had heard about the tight end room. But we had heard great things about the wide receiver room, and Jacoby Lane was as advertised tonight. If you watched him go and make that touchdown grab, he just snagged it out of midair and kind of sprinted across the goal line. And there were a couple other plays where he would just turn around, run a quick route, and just snap the ball down out of the air. He looks like he's been in an NFL uniform for 4 or 5 years the way he played tonight. Like he belonged, like he had no rookie jitters, like he just was there ready to go. But I'm pretty sure the guy's like 21 years old, or 22 years old. So with all that being said, Jacoby Lane looked like the real deal.
Absolutely, he did. And again, it was, I mean, here's the receiving statistics tonight. Surratt, 6 for 66. Hibner, 5 for 61. Lane, 3 for 38 with a touchdown. Walker, 3 for 31. Gilroy, 2 for 26. Wade, 3 for 24. Pezza 2 for 22, and our running backs weren't having to catch the ball out of the backfield. Like that always seemed like a thing that continued to happen under the old regime was we didn't get the balls to the receivers in good locations. We didn't get the ball out quickly. And then it seemed like, okay, we're dumping it off to tight ends, we're dumping it off to running backs. We're here, the receivers were finding, and they were playing a lot of zone defense, which I don't know if they do that. I guess I've never really looked into it to see if it's a thing in the preseason, but I guess it maybe prevents interesting things. But they were finding those soft spots. The rookies were finding the soft spots, and the ball was coming out quickly. Right when they turned around, the ball was there, and they were doing. I'll tell you the one thing that I did notice. I don't know if you noticed this is there was a lot of getting down, catching the ball, getting to the ground, not trying to do too much when the ball's in your hands.
I was actually going to make a comment on that, John. There wasn't a ton of yak yardage going on, and there was a lot of underneath stuff, but it kept the chains moving, so I wasn't super concerned about it. A couple bigger plays to the tight end down the sideline, but you know what? If the chains are moving, I'm a happy fella, especially when you're not going backwards with stupid penalties. So I'm excited about that piece for sure. Surratt, you mentioned him. He looked good. He was sneaky, just a little shift left and right to get by people. I think he's not fast, but he's quick, and he has that really good being able to sell the fake. And you could tell, like, he could wiggle a little bit in space, which is great to see. And that's how he finds these little gaps and gets open all the time, like you're talking about. The one thing he did obviously was fumble the football. You got to get the ball in your outside arm when you're running up the field. He makes the catch, he turns upfield, makes a move, and it's still in his inside arm 2 steps later. You got to just shift the ball over to that outside arm because the guy comes up from behind, doesn't see him, boom, ball's out. So that's just a simple, just adjustment that he needs to make. But for me, defensively, let's just switch gears to the defense. I thought they were solid. It wasn't anything super flashy, but like I said, they got off the field on third down. They didn't miss assignments. There wasn't blown coverages. Everything was just where it was supposed to be. So that tells me that Jesse Minter's system is working. And like you said, John, there were blitzes, and I thought the one time like Keon Martin got home, like that was a great little disguised blitz. He came off the one side after a couple guys were coming up the middle, and they're going to choose their spots. And when they choose their spots, it looks like they're going to get home. But they didn't have to do that every down, and that's why I think you saw such consistency from the defense tonight, not allowing the big play. And if you notice, the Eagles had trouble getting chunk yards. Obviously, this was not the Eagles. This was the Eagles light. But their team were playing against Irish backups as well, but no chunk yardage plays, really.
Right. They did a good job of keeping everything in front of them. And the defensive line, obviously it's not Jalen Hurts back there, right? It's not a Pro Bowl quarterback, not a Super Bowl winning quarterback back there. But they did a very good job of staying in their lanes, keeping the quarterback in the pocket, keeping the things hemmed in, and then, giving that back end the opportunity to make the plays here. So like defensively here, Martin had four tackles and a sack. TJ Tampa had 3 tackles. We only had the one sack, but Zion Young had one tackle. Washington had two tackles. So I mean, you're getting contributions from everybody on that defensive side of the football. And I think, like we keep talking about, if we can continually get pressure with 4, keep the quarterbacks in the pocket, stay in our lanes, give our defensive backs opportunities to make plays, not have to make plays, but opportunities to make plays, I think we're going to be looking upwards as the season goes on.
Yeah, really, really good showing tonight. For me, I think we're relatively healthy. I didn't see the injury report post game, but for the most part, it looked like we were pretty much unscathed throughout the game tonight. So that's always
what you're going to look at. Higgins got a concussion.
Well, that happens. Hopefully, he can get back on the field soon, do the whole return to play, and it wasn't crazy major. Hopefully, because I like him. He's got potential as a linebacker. But overall, right, I think pretty healthy, no major injuries tonight, which I think was it either side, John? Did you see anything from the Eagles side of things?
Let me see. There was no injury report to begin with, so
okay.
I don't see anything on the Ravens website.
Okay, so that's number one. Number two, we didn't play our starters, the main starters. I know that there were some guys who are rookies who are probably going to be part of that starting lineup or rotation. Any issues, John, with the fact that you didn't see much of the starting unit from the Ravens, or is that just what you kind of expected, obviously? Or do you feel like, are you in those kind of camp where these coaches need to play these guys more so they can get into flow?
No, I'm a believer in those joint practices. I think those are much more beneficial to the guys where you can at least control most of what's going on, but put them in game situations rather than putting your studs on the field. I like to see this because the Ravens are very good at a number of things in the front office, but one of them being is grabbing guys nobody else finds in the draft or undrafted and then stashing them away on the practice squad and then having them come up in times that are they're needed. So this is a very good opportunity to see the game. An NFL, even your worst NFL player is better than 99% of your college players that you're going to face. So you're getting a good look at, okay, we can stash, this player A, B, and C on the practice squad. They're going to be capable if we lose a cornerback or we lose, somebody goes down with a season-ending injury. We're not going to have to try to maneuver cap space to sign someone else or bring somebody else in because we have that replacement. And I think the Ravens are very good at that. And I think tonight, the preseason games are going to show that. I don't expect us to play. Tez Walker's probably, you consider him a starter, I think. But
I would say, yeah, he's probably our third receiver.
Yeah, unless Surratt or Lane really, but watching them tonight though, Tez has to be looking over his shoulder at those two guys because they're special, both of them.
As they say, iron sharpens iron, right? So maybe that's what's happening in camp. Hopefully that John Harbaughism doesn't go away. And those guys can kind of push each other to be better. I think that wide receiver room is going to be a fun place to be this year. And I really hope it looks like we're going to take advantage of these receivers this year and get them in good spots. Declan Doyle did a really nice job tonight. My one concern coming out of tonight's game, as far as the game plan or the performance is regarded, I would say, is the kicking game. We have a second-year kicker and a rookie punter. And we were asked, I was watching the one part of the game, we're trying to pin him inside the 20, and it just kind of goes out of bounds, like north of the 20. And you're like, well, it wasn't really even close. And then Kyler Luke misses his first field goal he attempts tonight. He came back and made one later on. I know that Jason hates talking about kickers and punters, but I know that you do enjoy it. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes here to say what you have to say about the kicking game.
I didn't see the punt because I was having technical difficulties watching the game, but I heard about it on the broadcast of things. And I think Luke probably has 3 weeks. I think if after 3 weeks, if he's not consistent, like that's the thing with special teams, right? It's about consistency. It's everything 50 and in. Everything 50 and in. If you're making 99% of your kicks 50 and in, you're going to win a lot of games. And Luke's not doing that. Like you see this, the whole talk of the practice at University of Maryland was what? He missed 2 kicks or did he make 2 kicks? Who gives a rat's ass? Put the ball between the uprights, right down Broadway, and you don't have to worry about these things. I saw a couple comments from Ravens fans. They're like, can we just forgive and forget Justin Tucker and bring him back?
Oh man.
Can we just change his name or something else? Because I don't have confidence in Luke. I don't think that and again, Jason hates this stuff. He hates kickers. He doesn't think they're real people. He thinks they're just there to, entertain. But the punting thing is one bad kick, but Luke seems to have this is kind of a routine thing going on, and the one thing that I really expected them to do and they didn't do was bring in competition, was bring in a veteran to compete, and they didn't do that. And I know you only got so many roster spots and things, but I think this is of the utmost importance right now.
Yeah, John, I actually agree with you regarding the fact that they need a veteran in camp. I don't know if I'm as quick of a hook as you are with Luke 3 weeks like that. But I do think that if you're trying to contend for a Super Bowl, you can't depend on your kicker to make a 45-year-old field goal. We have an issue. So it will have to be addressed sooner rather than later. So, but yeah, why not have a veteran kicker in camp to give him a little bit of pressure? If he can't handle pressure in a practice with another kicker looking over his shoulder, how is he going to handle kicking a game-winning field goal? We saw what that looked like in Pittsburgh at the end of last year, right? So, might as well simulate that pressure now in camp. So, I would like to see a little more pressure on him right now. Overall, though, Ravens with a really good performance tonight. Again, we're brought to you by Spark Podcast Network. Thank you, Spark, for partnering with us. John, do you want to tell the good people where they can find Dad Bod's Crab Cakes and Sports?
You can find us on all social media, Dad Bod's Crab Cakes and Sports on Instagram and Facebook, Crab Cakes _sports on X, and then YouTube. You can watch all of our shows unedited there. Those are unfiltered, ad-free. So if you want to check us out there, you can even go back and check us out from, Mike, almost 18 months ago when we started this? I think you can check us out there 18 months ago and see how we were doing back then and how much we've either improved, how much better looking we are now, and I don't know, everything else. But yeah, and then dadbods, crabcakes, and sports at gmail.com. If you want to send us a note or have topics you'd like us to bring up or go over.
Yeah, tell us what you think about tonight's game on Facebook, on social media. What are your takeaways from a Ravens first preseason game? John, you spoke about joint practice. I think they're going to do that with the Vikings coming up here, and that should be a pretty good idea of how maybe the veterans get some good reps against some opponents other than the people in their locker room. So I'm excited about that piece. I know that one of the guys was on the broadcast tonight, kind of talking about that being what they look forward to. It might have been Kyle Hamilton. That what they look forward to. Last Ravens note before we move on to the other birds in Baltimore is that another offensive lineman has retired. We lost Hakeem Adeniji a couple days after signing him, and now Kendall Lamb has decided that he's a little bit older. He's going to retire as well. I don't know if it's just kind of one of those personal things, John. I really don't see it as anything Ravens locker room or coaching or anything like that related. I just feel like it's a couple strings of bad luck. What's your thoughts?
That's what I thought when I hadn't seen that come up until you sent me a text. But when I looked into it, I think you get older players. You don't know what else is going on in their lives or in their bodies, and it's not. If somebody like Ronnie Stanley or Kyle Harris, a big name guy, just got up and quit, and we had 3 of them retire, you'd be like, something's going on. But these guys are backups. They're, at best, it's not like we're losing pieces to this.
Adeniji was, I think, 28 years old. He was a little bit more of a surprise. I think he was a little bit better player. But with that being said, these things happen all the time in the NFL. Like you said, you have to prioritize your family, your health. You want to be able to play catch with your son or your daughter. Like, you got to keep all those things in mind in light of sport. So I think there are things that are bigger than sports as much as we love it and we talk about it all the time. And I'm not sure, I don't know the story well enough to know the exact answer, but we just got to keep that in mind when we are giving perspective these types of issues. It does not seem to me like maybe that Ledford or there's an issue with the offensive line coaching, or I don't think there's no smoke there. There's no fire there. But John, let's shift gears. When we started the podcast tonight, and this might have changed because there were still a lot of games left to be played in Major League Baseball. There was a 5-way tie for the last wild card spot in the American League East, in which our Baltimore Orioles would have a chance to be in the playoffs. 3 games under 500 right now. And before we talk about the Orioles, can we talk about the absolute reality that there might be a wild card team that finishes the season at like 80 and 82, under 500, and makes the playoffs? I would have never thought that was possible. But I think it's a real reality potentially in this 2026 MLB season. John, what are your thoughts on that?
I think so too, because I'm looking at this. It's the American League East and then everybody else. So the Yankees and the Red Sox basically, unless they implode in a dumpster fire, they're 6 and 8 games up respectively. But then behind them for the last spot, you have the Blue Jays and the Orioles, Rangers and Tigers, all tied. I think the Orioles hold the lead over the Tigers. The Rangers hold the lead over the Orioles, and I think the Blue Jays hold the lead over the Orioles too. So the only way we'd get in is if we tied the Tigers.
Well, John, rock beats scissors, scissors cuts paper, paper covers rock. So we got it all covered over here.
Yeah, and then we got the Twins and the Indians are
Guardians.
Twins and the Guardians are only a half game back. Mariners are 2.5 back, and then you got the Royals, A's, and Angels 10, 11.5, and 12 games back. So then in the National League, every team that is in contention is above 500. The Marlins are 3 games behind the Padres for the last spot at 63 and 61.
It's crazy. It's like the Wild West in the American League this year. Literally, anybody can make the playoffs except the A's, the Angels, and the Royals. I mean, it can be anybody out of those teams. And like you said, the Rays, the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Blue Jays, and the Orioles are all in the tied for playoff spots right now. Isn't that nuts? All 5 of those teams. Now, they've been saying this for years that this was going to happen eventually because the AL East is always that division where they're like, oh my gosh, who's going to come out of that? We have 5 contenders, and then there's always 1 or 2 teams who crap the bed. I would say there's 2 to 3 teams that have crapped the bed this year, and then the Red Sox went on that tear, so really there's only 2 teams. But it doesn't matter because everybody's in. You get a ticket, and you get a ticket. Where's the Oprah meme right now? Everybody's getting a ticket to the playoffs. Just pass them out. It's going to be the mediocre AL playoff wild card series, and I don't know if I'm looking forward to it or not, John. I'm looking forward to the end of the season. I feel like and how this is going to roll out more than I am for the actual playoffs because it's really just going to be the Dodgers and Brewers hosting everybody else. I think to win the World Series, but it is exciting. Baseball wanted parity, but is this mediocrity good for baseball?
Well, we've talked about this for as long as I can remember. Since I was a little kid, that the AL East was always your best division in baseball, and any one of those 5 teams could win the other divisions and beat up on the other divisions. So I mean that this just helps the AL East. But how weird is this? You could potentially have a team with like 80 wins win the World Series. You could have a sub 500 team win the World Series. Not to be a homer, but if you look at the Orioles pitching staff, in the playoffs, you need 3 starters. You don't need a 5-man rotation. You need 3 solid starters. The Orioles have 3 solid starters. And if they could get the bats going, if Basayo comes back and keeps hitting, and we can do these things, the Orioles may have an actual opportunity come playoff time.
Well, according to the Orioles, I think Samuel Basayo is going to be starting a rehab assignment. He was in the cage, they said, prior to tonight's game and swinging. So that's a good sign for the Orioles. Jason says, disagree. It only takes 1 team to get hot. Example, the Rangers. I'm not sure what he's disagreeing with, John. I don't know if he's agreeing with the fact that you could make that all the way to the World Series. That's probably what I'm thinking there. But with that being said, Basayo could give this team a huge spark because we're not getting really anything offensively from our catching position. And Basayo was hitting middle of the order-ish, 5-6 in the lineup, and they moved Gunnar down into that 5 hole. And Gunnar went 4 for 4 last night. When I looked tonight, he was like 1 for 4. You might have the stats in front of you. He had another base hit, I think. But he is heating up, it seems to be. If Gunnar heats up, Pete's already playing pretty solid. You get Basayo back in the mix. You get some bats in the middle of your order that are all on fire at the same time. who knows what this Orioles team can do because there's nobody that great in that center mix of teams in the American League. What are your current thoughts on, first of all, that mix, Basayo getting healthy and what that does for the Orioles? And then secondly, do they have a real chance to make any real noise?
I think so. I look at, I'm going to go back to this. Pitching and defense wins championships. And the way that this starting pitching staff is going, and if we can get Helsley and Bautista back come September, if we can get 3-4 runs a game, we're going to win a lot of baseball games. And I think, I'm kind of questioning Alvarez and moving some of these guys around. Pete hit leadoff for the first time last night. You got O'Neill hitting leadoff tonight. But Pete, again, tonight, 3 hits, 1 RBI, 1 run. And this Franklin kid's got wheels. And that's an important thing to have on your team and come, later in the season as well, as a guy like Franklin who can run. And it's our good friend, Jason. How are you, sir?
Good, John. I'm just a little nervous. Your ability to podcast when you're downing whatever sugary nonsense it is that you're doing over there.
Sprite, and tea. There's no
Jason. Let's not focus on John. It's just good to see you. It's good to be in great company, and you were doing good dad things tonight, right? So why don't you tell the listeners what you guys were up to?
Yeah, I mean, we're still not done yet. I'm taking a quick reprieve. It is my daughter somehow snagged a free viewing for oh god, I can't remember the name of it. What it's called? Why can't I never remember? Oh, Outer Banks. Season, the final season, but it's a big hoopla right now, and they're all doing these live interviews and stuff like that. But the show doesn't actually start until like 12 o'clock. So then they're letting you get a free. So I'll be up till 12 o'clock and then beyond watching the first episode of the Outer Banks for season, I guess 5 it is or whatever.
All right.
With my daughter.
Shirtless guys and Jason up till midnight watching shirtless guys run around on the beach. Good job, buddy. I love that. That's fun.
Outstanding.
Well, I actually like that show. I've seen that show quite a few times, and I thought the last season already happened, but you know how they do that? It's another last season. Do that over again, Cobra Kai style, over and over again. But anyway, Jason, we're talking Orioles right now, and we're stuck in this kind of parity, mediocrity in the American League East. We've got these teams stacked. There's probably like 7 teams stacked within a game and a half, 2 games of that final wild card spot. And we've been talking about it over the last few episodes. But now the Orioles are like in that last wild card spot, which is crazy to believe. Do you think someone with a sub 500 record is going to make the playoffs this year?
I mean, statistically, the way that it's coming out, I mean, it could be, quite possible. But like I said in my text, though, it only takes like someone to go on a 5 out of 7 game win streak, then win another 2 or 3 in a row, and then just go on these parities where you're not like you're winning multiple games all the time, every other week, something like that. And then all of a sudden, now you're like 4 or 5 games above 500. I think that the last wildcard team will be over 500. It is my prediction, like as far as that goes. I don't know who it's going to be. I do know that like it's a lot of teams still play each other within their division. So that's the other thing. When you're playing these teams down the road, like in your division that know you the best, like anything can happen. I heard John say about the pitching staff. Yeah, I mean, the pitching staff's great for the Orioles. Gives them kind of a leg up, I think, but their bullpen is garbage. Like consistent garbage. Like tonight, Cam Sanders, 2 saves in a row. Yeah, but I was very nervous. It's not your typical playoff bullpen. And I'm telling you right now, if they make it to the playoffs and the bullpen lets them down, or it's just a quick exit, something like this, Mike Elias should be ashamed of himself, because you didn't have to go out and be crazy buyers. You just needed to give one or two little pieces to help, even if it was all bullpen. Now, I do realize that they've done a couple things by picking some guys up. The guy that they got back in the Ward trade, he's pitched a little bit high. So I just think that if they end up making it in and it's a short one out, they might be kicking themselves, because it only takes you to get hot just for a short period of time and you can make a little bit of a run.
Yeah, I've never really been hot per se.
Okay.
I was probably better looking between the age of 18 to 22. But we all just need that little period of time. But you said, Jason, what, 5-game roll, and these guys are 3 games over 500, one of these teams, right? So it's also very possible that there's a team that's a few games over 500 that makes that last wild card spot. And we've had teams flirting near 500, but winning teams that have made the playoffs before. Jason, you talk a little bit about Mike Elias, and I came across an article the other day, and I showed you guys a brief picture of what I found on social media. But it basically outlined Dan Duquette's time with the Orioles, and then it outlined Mike Elias's time with the Orioles. And let me just give you a quick overview. I'll just read a few of the things, and then you guys can give me your commentary, okay? So the article said, Dan Duquette's time with the Orioles. Playoff appearances in 2012, 2014, and 2016. He had winning seasons in 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. He took the Yankees to 5 games in 2012, right? They beat the Tigers in 2014 and lost to a hot Royals team in the ALCS. And then they make the playoffs, and Buck happened and the whole thing, and the Britain thing in 2016, right? Elias, let's talk a little about Mike Elias's tenure. They tanked in 19, 20, and 21, right? And then they made the playoffs in 22 and 23. They did not win a playoff game, correct? And at the deadline in 22, 24, 25, and 26, I would say they didn't do anything of substance or gave up or didn't succeed in procuring players that would help them push them over the edge. Elias is the longest tenured general manager in all 4 major sports without a playoff win, according to the post that I'm seeing. Elias defenders live in an alternate reality, is what this poster said, based on what was promised. So that's the question for you. Are Elias defenders in an alternate reality? Or is this just a matter of time before Elias kind of hits his stride and this Orioles team kind of finally fulfills what it should be? Jason, I'll start with you because you haven't been here for very long.
Are they in an alternate universe? No, I mean, it's just, if you look at how everything played out chronologically, you can almost throw out the first couple years, right? Because it was an intentional floundering on purpose to get higher draft picks. Now, Major League Baseball since changed that rule, so you can no longer do that. There's a lottery involved. However, so you throw out the first couple years with that. And then you start building up the team and you're doing different things. So you do give them a free pass for a while, but then 2023 happened, which might have been like the worst thing for them because they were like a year ahead. And then all the expectations are high, but they haven't been able to cash in. And I will make the argument that they haven't been able to cash in because of the major league roster and him not being able to do it. The one thing I do want to say, though, about the Dan Duquette period, I am a skeptical because I'm not ready to give Dan Duquette all the credit because Buck Showalter was hired before Dan Duquette and he was kind of pulling the strings and saying, dance puppet, dance. I heard a lot of things that a lot of it was Buck. And now I'm not saying Dan Duquette didn't do a good job because he was shopping at Aldi. He wasn't shopping at, I don't know, what's a fancy Gucci. He was out there getting all of his things discount. So I think JJ Hardy, that Nelson Cruz, Ubaldo Jimenez. No, there are a couple really good moves in there.
Trumbo,
yeah. So I don't know. It's a tough one for me. Neither team got over the hump. I think Buck had a lot to do with that too, though.
John?
Jason, I
All right.
I would have
Fellas,
to agree.
hold on. I don't mean to interrupt. I'm out. Episode's getting ready to start early. Love you guys. Have a good rest of the show.
See you tomorrow,
All
Jason.
right.
Bye,
I hope they
guys.
find the treasure, Jason.
Me too. Goodbye.
All right.
So I would agree with Jason on a lot of those points. But here's the thing that you got to kind of look at from the Buck days too is you stayed fairly healthy. You didn't have your closer go down 3 years in a row. You didn't have a spot where, obviously Weeders had to have Tommy John, and he was a huge part of that team. But you didn't lose Bautista. You didn't lose Jim Johnson 3 years in a row. You didn't try to have to bring in into the bullpen arms that then give up leads, but the biggest thing missing here, and Duquette made the mistake with Chris Davis. Okay, great. Chris Davis was a huge risk, huge reward type guy. But look at Elias. Elias has, outside of Pete, Elias has not brought in more bats, more major league ready bats. He brought in Pete. He brought in
Ward and Blaze this year.
Ward and Blaze, right? But Blaze was not a bat. Blaze was there because he's an outstanding defender who can play 9 positions on a baseball field. Blaze wasn't meant to hit. The surprise of his hitting is awesome, but Ward was brought in to hit. Pete was brought in to hit. Ward did not do that. He got on base and he contributed, but he did not do the hitting. And I think that's probably the biggest thing with Elias is he has not brought in major league hitters outside of Pete. And that is where our team is struggling. Our pitching staff is great. He's done a good job bringing those guys in, bringing those guys up, our starting pitching. But, again, the injuries to the back of the bullpen and not bringing in big league bats. Those two things have killed Elias.
Well, I would argue a little bit that the Duquette regime had to deal with some injury too. I remember Machado got hurt for a while there, and there was that playoff run that they were missing some key players. But I would say this too, John. I think you're onto something because I think Elias, like I said in the last episode, he just falls in love with these minor league prospects, and as they come up, he's expecting them all to develop into major league talent. And the reality of the situation is, yes, hopefully some of those guys, because you have a good eye for talent, are going to develop into good Major League Baseball players. But the other reality is some of them aren't. And regardless of how highly touted injury things happen in life, you have to have supplemental pieces, free agency wise or trade wise, that are major league players, that are veterans, that are going to help fill out that roster. And that was the great mix that Duquette was able to figure out. He actually was really good at kind of putting together and piecemealing veterans because that's what we had to do, because the guy in charge of writing the checks wasn't writing really big checks back then. So the one thing that I would give Duquette, if we had a little more Duquette in our life right now, I think a little mix of Delias or Luquette, we had a little Luquette, maybe let's mix their names together. We would have a better chance to win because I think they could learn from each other. It's like when I had these two soccer players that were midfielders, they were identical twins, right? One was able to just sprint the length of the field and beat everybody one-on-one. And the other was able to sharply cut back and forth in the center midfield and had great vision to find passing. And I kept telling him, I'm like, if you could just get a little bit more of your sister's game, back and forth, you guys would be the perfect player. And so I feel like for us, it's finding that perfect mix. And I think hopefully Elias can learn a little bit more about how to add to that major league roster. And I think you hit the nail on the head, John. It's more from the bats side of things because I think he's done a really good job recently with the arms.
Yeah, and look at us. I just saw the stat tonight as I was trying to watch the Ravens and the Orioles game at the same time, and it didn't work out well. Going into tonight, we were 6-10 in extra inning games, and we're like 8-19 in 1-run games. We're 2 runs. We're probably under 10 runs total from being an above 500 team and already being in the playoff race. We're probably 10 runs or so, away from being in this playoff race. But again, I'm going to say it again. I really think that the injuries at the back end of the bullpen, though, have hurt us here, where in 13-14, you had Jim Johnson, and he was solid back there for 2 straight seasons with, closing those games out. We're having closer by committee. We brought Kimbrell in, and he flopped. Brought Helsley in, and he's hurt. And Bautista just can't stay healthy, even though he is a rock star.
Well, for me, it's like I think the Orioles, if you look at their offensive output, they're not a horrible. It feels like they've been in fits and starts this year, but they have scored 553 runs this season. If you look at the rest of the AL East, the Rays scored 557, and they're 74 and 48. They've scored 4 more runs than us the entire season. Now, obviously, they've only given up 497 runs, where we've given up 587 runs. 90 more runs we have given up. But I would attribute many of those runs to defense, not just pitching. And if you look
tonight, we would not have gone to extra innings if our catchers would not have overthrown third base and they scored a run.
Correct.
I think a lot of our problems have come back to the catching, to not having a good catcher back there, because of Adley's injuries, and now obviously he's gone. Those sorts of things.
Yeah, so they have the 4th most American errors in the American League according to artificial intelligence in a quick check. And I think that has been a major piece of the puzzle this year. And that has hurt them in those one-run games that you're talking about, John. Because if you play solid defense in half of those games, you probably see that stat flip-flop a little bit. And then, instead of, like you said, talking about a team that's sitting 3 games under 500, maybe you're talking about a team that's sitting 3 games over 500. And maybe the outlook from fans and players alike is a little bit different. But for now, they are what they are. I don't think they did too much to really improve their defense when it came to the trade deadline. So unless there are leaps and bounds or somebody does something out of character, I think Tyler O'Neill maybe has played a little bit better defense as of late. I don't think they are going to change their stripes. So we have what we have. If somehow they go on a magical run, it will be the most amazing thing ever. But you're not going to see me really, really upset if they don't make the playoffs this year. I don't know what your feelings are about your hopes and dreams of playoffs.
No, I thought the same thing, because I think did you say this or Jason said this, that the biggest issue for this season is going to be the fact that Westbrook's not playing, that we're missing, and then Blaze was filling in amicably over there at third base and doing a good job, and then he got hurt, and so missing your third baseman is what Westberg. And I'll tell you what, Cowser his defense has really, really improved, I think, out there in center field. I think he's getting confidence, because I think earlier in the year, with Ward and other people, he was losing some confidence because they were moving him in and out of the lineup. He wasn't hitting against lefties. He wasn't doing this, that, and the other. Now I think he has his job in center field. He knows that's his job for the rest of the year, not going to be taken, giving him more confidence. And the number one key is confidence. If you're confident at the plate, confident in the field, you're going to perform better.
All right. Well, that's all I got really for the O's tonight. I think it's exciting that the fact that they are on the precipice of potentially being in the playoffs, because at the beginning of the year, we thought we were going to take off. And, with the Alonso signing and finally having a real bat in your lineup to add to those younger guys, but then you lose Adley and your heart drops and sinks. And then all of a sudden you look and you're 5 games under and there's no chance. And wait, we're only 1 game back. And now we're even for that final playoff spot. So this roller coaster ride of a season continues with the Birds of Baltimore. The Ravens look wonderful in the first preseason game. It's just your average Baltimore sports evening. But let's move into national news. Just really quick, some really quick hits. And John, I don't know if you have anything to add nationally, but Devin Witherspoon signs a 3-time Pro Bowler. Corner signs a 4-year, $132 million extension in Seattle. More than $101 million guaranteed. That Seahawks team, already a Super Bowl winner. Mike McDonald, a solid coach out there in Seattle. So I think that's a really good move for Seattle. And then Jeremiah Love, we talked about him in last night's fantasy football episode, and we were impressed with what we saw. But, of course, he has a sore ankle. So he's going to be out for at least a week. So, this stuff is going to happen throughout the preseason. You're going to have rookies and big-name guys that are banged and boomed, and just like we have Zay Flowers out for a while. But that's just the nature of the beast with football. John, anything from the world of football that really hit you on the radar screen?
No, just that signing there is kind of a wake up, or not even a wake up call, but it's kind of a knock at the door of the Ravens to say, you know what, if you're going to hang on to Wiggins, if you're going to keep him around, you're going to have to figure out how to clear up some cap space, because that number is going to be where Wiggins is going to be looking.
Yeah, hopefully we can wait a couple years for that down the road, but you know how that goes. Fifth-year option, all that kind of good stuff, and see where that rolls out, because there's a couple other guys that need to get paid. Thankfully, Zay got paid. We talked about Zay getting paid, but Lamar, he's the next big domino to fall, because that's the biggest of them all. So that's about all I got. Again, thanks to Spark Podcast, except the dad joke of the day, and that's what I want to finish up with here today, John. And you might know this one. This sounds like one your dad might have told back in the day, but what did the janitor say when he jumped out of the closet? The answer is...
What did the janitor say when he jumped out of the closet?
Yeah.
I don't know.
He said, supplies, like surprise, but oh my gosh, that's rough. That's what. Thank you. Yeah. I'll be here all week. John's playing with all the different sounds we got on the soundboard. John's becoming quite the technician, except he can't get his own face off of our screen. It's been stuck here for 2 episodes. But, John, I'm really glad you can work all the fun buttons. But anything for the good of the cause, John, before we wrap it up this evening?
Just like us and follow us on YouTube. It really helps move the show along and move us up the charts and things. And like and share everywhere you have it on social media. Helps us out immensely, and allows us to find more guests and more things to do. And again, thanks to the Spark Podcast Network for all their hard work and for getting us out there. I think last week, Mike, we were near almost 200 downloads.
That's fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for listening in. We'll have our fantasy football fix on Friday. We'll have our midweek show coming up this week. And then Saturday evenings, somewhere between 9:30 and 10:30, we usually find us here on Facebook, live, and in your downloads, anywhere you can get your podcasts. Again, for John Lanscraner, Jason Weisbecker, all the Outer Banks people, thanks for joining us tonight. Have a good evening. Don't forget to subscribe to Dad Bods, Crab Cakes, and Sports on Red Circle, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your free podcasts. And while you're at it, leave us a review. It really helps us out. We're trying to spread the good word about Baltimore sports far and wide. Follow us on social media for more behind-the-scenes actions, memes, and bad sports takes. You can find us at Dad Bods, Crab Cakes, and Sports on Instagram, and Dad Bods, Crab Cakes, and Sports on our Facebook page. Until next time, keep rocking those dad bods, eating those crab cakes, and never miss the game.